Wow, so the Eagles just did something that was unimaginable a very short time ago, as they just made a shocking roster move involving a player that was once expected to be a starter, a leader, and a huge contributor for this team. So how did things get to this point, and what do things look like for the Eagles at this spot moving forward? Well, things are seemingly going to look a little different at one other position in particular on defense, as a recent report confirmed that the Eagles are expected to start one of their promising rookies for the first time. Meanwhile, the New York Jets made a surprising move recently that sent shockwaves through the NFL, and it has many people questioning whether the Eagles could either capitalize on it or follow in their footsteps. So could either of those things happen? Plus, the Eagles are about to enter a very crucial stretch that could help define their season. So we're going to talk about that and all the other latest Eagles news starting right now. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Philly Fan 21 channel. If you're new, I'm Evan and I cover all things Philadelphia Eagles. But let's start out with some big NFL news that just happened yesterday that will tie back in with the Eagles later on, as the New York Jets fired their head coach Robert Saleh just 5 games into the new season, which even with their 2-3 start and their loss to the Vikings on Sunday comes as somewhat of a surprise, just given how early in the season it is and the fact that this past week was only Aaron Rodgers' 5th game playing for them. Plus, Saleh's defense has actually been looking good this season, and it's really been the offense that has struggled, and Rodgers definitely deserves a lot of the blame for the issues, but you knew that they weren't going to make a change at that spot, and it kind of already seemed like there maybe could have been a divide between Rodgers and Saleh anyway. So with the Jets struggling, I guess they felt pressure to make a big change and get things right. The craziest part about this whole thing, though, is that they didn't even let Saleh address the team following his firing, and he was escorted out of the building by Jet security, which is something that just doesn't happen. So I think that whole situation, along with the whole Reddick thing, goes to show you just how bad the Jets organization is right now. But in regards to the Eagles, this whole situation surrounding Saleh has sparked a few questions. One being whether the Eagles should maybe try and bring him in as a defensive consultant or even as defensive coordinator and move on from Vic Fangio. As Saleh's more aggressive style sounds like a nice change of pace for Eagles fans, just considering what we've seen in recent memory. Plus, Saleh apparently has a solid relationship with Nick Sirianni, according to Elliott Shore-Parks. And also, I don't think you can question that he would 100% get more out of Bryce Huff than what the Eagles are getting out of him right now. That being said, though, if we're being real, there's just absolutely no way that the Eagles bring Saleh in as the defensive coordinator. I mean, they've shown for years now that they like Vic Fangio's system, and they finally have the godfather of it all, and they're just 4 games into his Eagles tenure, so there's just absolutely no way that they're replacing him. Now, as a consultant, that I think is a little bit more realistic and an intriguing concept, but something I still don't think will happen, just considering that Fangio and Saleh's styles are so different. And it also doesn't help that Eagles offensive lineman Mekhi Becton, who obviously used to play for the Jets, doesn't seem to be too fond of Saleh, as after he was fired, Becton posted this classic meme on Twitter before deleting it, which, if you're unfamiliar, the original caption to this photo is, quote, "I stopped by one of my biggest haters' funeral today just to make sure he was dead," which you may also remember Sixers star Joel Embiid posting the same thing after they traded Ben Simmons. So that's definitely not the greatest look, and it doesn't exactly make me feel like Robert Saleh is going to be coming anywhere near Philadelphia anytime soon. But now, the other question that the Saleh firing brought up for Eagles fans is whether their head coach Nick Sirianni would be fired or not next. And that question may have a very different answer than the previous two, as we all know that Sirianni is seemingly on extremely thin ice right now after the collapse last year and the somewhat rough start this year, and now the Eagles obviously have the perfect chance to bounce back and build some momentum against some bad football teams, as they have the easiest remaining schedule in the NFL. But if things do go south, it very well could be the end of Sirianni for Philly, and I actually recently just made a video talking about what may happen with Sirianni if the Eagles take a loss to the Browns this week, so you guys can check that video out after this one if you want. But to answer the original question of whether Sirianni could possibly be the next coach fired or not, I definitely think it's possible if things do go bad, so we'll see what happens. But the good news for Sirianni is that history is currently on his side, because in addition to playing what is easily one of the worst teams in football this week in the Cleveland Browns, Sirianni has also been very, very successful coming off bye weeks in his career, as he's 3-0 so far in his career in the regular season and 4-1 including the postseason, with all these games having unique circumstances. I mean, in 2021, the Eagles were in the middle of their midseason turnaround after their slow start in Sirianni's rookie year, and the Birds beat the Washington football team just before Christmas, with Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, and Dallas Goedert all having nice games. And then in 2022, the Eagles were coming off a bye week after beating Dallas the previous week, and they came out at home and destroyed the Steelers, as Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown put on an absolute show, connecting for 3 touchdowns in the first half, and Hurts probably had one of the best overall games of his entire career that day, throwing for 285 yards and 4 touchdowns. And then during the playoffs that year, they obviously destroyed the Giants at home with a dominant effort on both sides of the ball. Then sadly, obviously, they lost after the bye, leading into Super Bowl 57 to the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs, and then the year after in 2023, they were coming off a win over Dallas again before the bye, and they beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead in a sloppy but hard-fought game. So we'll see if Sirianni can continue his post-bye week success this week against the Cleveland Browns, in a game where both the offense and defense have favorable matchups, and they'll see some star players returning on both sides of the ball. And this game also marks a very special occasion for an all-time Eagle. And don't worry, we're going to get into that and so much more in just a minute, but real quick, I do want to say, if you are enjoying this video and don't want to miss any other Eagles coverage or content just like this coming throughout the rest of the season, then make sure you subscribe and also really importantly, turn on notifications so you're notified instantly when one of these videos is uploaded. I think that's a win-win for the both of us, because not only do I get more people consistently watching these videos, but you don't miss any other Eagles coverage or content just like this. So again, subscribe, turn on notifications, and also drop a like. Let's see if we can get to 600 likes on today's video. And now, with all that being said, let's get back into the video. So Sunday's game marks a very special occasion for the Eagles' longest tenured member, and the franchise's all-time longest tenured member at that, in Brandon Graham, as this matchup with the Browns will be Graham's 200th regular season game, which is just insane. And obviously that means he's the first Eagle to ever reach that milestone, as like I said, he's played the most games for this franchise in its history and the most seasons. So congrats to BG for another incredible milestone. And again, drop a like down below for that. Let's see if we can get to 600 likes today. But now, switching over from the franchise's all-time leader in games played to a guy who has played 0 games for the Eagles, we have to dive into a very interesting situation. As on Tuesday afternoon, the Birds dropped some shocking news as they made a huge roster move that, sure, maybe at this point we could have seen coming, but it still really just doesn't make any sense in the grand scheme of things, as they announced that they had released linebacker Devin White, and it's likely to make room for Sidney Brown to make his return from the PUP list. But the fact that White actually ended up being cut just 5 weeks into his lone season with the Birds is just insane when you look at how this whole situation transpired. I mean, the Birds signed Devin White way back in March during the heat of free agency to presumably be this team's top linebacker for the 2024 season, and a lot of Eagles fans were excited about it at the time, as White is still just 26 years old and a former All-Pro, a Pro Bowler, and a Super Bowl champion. And I mean, just a couple seasons ago in 2021, he was ranked as the 28th best player in all of football. So even after a down year in Tampa in 2023, he surely would come in and be the Eagles' best linebacker. At least that was the thought, and it certainly looked that way in camp, as he got first team reps every day in practice, so it seemed like there was no question that he would be a starter, and it seemed like he was also becoming one of the team's leaders. But then things took a weird turn as he suffered an injury just ahead of week 1 that held him out of that matchup with the Packers. But even regardless of that, reports also came out saying that White had already lost his starting job to Nick Sirianni in training camp, even though White was the one still taking all the first team reps while Dean was with the second team the majority of the time. But nevertheless, those reports were right, and Dean along with Zach Bond have been the starting linebackers ever since, while Devin White has not only not been a starter, but he's been listed as inactive every single week, as White's not a guy who plays special teams while the Eagles' other backup linebackers do. So they were made active over him, and again, this is just a crazy turn of events considering he was expected to start until right before the season, and now obviously he's been cut, which was just absolutely unthinkable and unimaginable just a short time ago. So the Devin White experience in Philadelphia is now over without him ever playing a snap for the Birds, and safe to say, this whole thing was really weird, and it was a huge failed signing by Howie. Now, the good news about him being released is that White agreed to terms that helped provide a little bit of cap relief for the Eagles, and in return, the Eagles released him now rather than at the trade deadline where he would hit waivers and not have a say in where he ends up going. So that's at least good that the Eagles were able to save some money, but again, this was definitely a weird and not ideal situation, as this will go down as another massive flop for the Eagles at the linebacker position as they continue to struggle to find good and consistent players at that spot. Now, this year, I will say, I do think things could be a lot worse at that position, as Zach Bond looks surprisingly really good, and I think the Eagles need to find a way to extend him if they can. And then while Cooper DeJean has had some bad moments, with the biggest example being the Eagles' last game against the Bucs in which he missed 5 tackles, I also do think he has shown some promise in the form of a high motor and an aggressive play style, as he's made some nice splash plays, especially against the run. And most importantly, he seems to be greatly improved from last year, so hopefully he continues to get better as the season moves on. But all that being said, it is a shame that we never got to see Devin White at least get a few snaps or some sort of chance to contribute, and now he's gone. So again, that kind of stinks, all things considered, and I do wish him good luck wherever he goes next. And this move isn't the only shakeup that the Eagles have apparently made to their defense ahead of their matchup with the Browns, as it seems like the Birds are preparing to make a switch at the starting slot cornerback position, with Jeremy Fowler reporting that the Eagles are expected to finally start their second-round rookie Cooper DeJean in that spot. As Fowler said, quote, "Changes to the Eagles line lineup are on the table as 2-2 Philly emerges from its bye week. One position to watch, rookie Cooper DeJean taking over nickel corner duties from veteran Avonte Maddox. That's a move I'm expecting barring new developments. DeJean, a second rounder with first round talent, got off to a slow start due to a preseason injury, but is considered all caught up with Vic Fangio's scheme. I'm told multiple defensive positions were up to discussions over the past week due to a defense that ranks 30th in yards per play allowed. 6. The shakeup began in earnest Tuesday when the team released linebacker Devin White, a former Pro Bowl player who has been a healthy scratch all season. So that's not only awesome to hear just because it shows that Fangio and the Eagles coaches are very open to making big changes to the defense, but it's also great to hear that Coop is finally going to get his chance, as he's a guy who, like Fowler said, has a lot of talent, first round talent to be specific, and he has the skill set to do a lot of different things well, as he's super athletic, fast, and physical. And now that he's all caught up with the defense and he's learned it, it is exciting that he is now finally going to be out on the field in a starting role, and that he's also going to be replacing Avonte Maddox, who has struggled this year. So personally, I just cannot wait to see the rookie out there. And now, with DeJean presumably starting at nickel, the Eagles will move forward into what is going to be an extremely crucial stretch of their season, as these next 4 games could help define who this Eagles team is and establish what they can do in 2024. As after a disappointing injury-riddled start to their season, the Eagles have a chance to turn things around, get on track, fix their issues, and establish an identity with a very easy and favorable 4-game stretch in front of them, as they will play the 1-4 Browns, the 2-3 Giants, the 1-4 Bengals, and the 1-4 Jaguars. So on paper, there is a very good chance that the Eagles could go 3-1 or even 4-0 and either keep pace in the NFC East or overtake the top spot. But of course, these games are not played on paper, and the Eagles gotta make sure they're ready for each and every one of these contests. And hopefully they come out and actually put forth a much better product on the field than we saw in the first 4 weeks. But if they don't and take some losses that they shouldn't, I could definitely imagine some big changes being made, and I also probably would then have a hard time believing that this team could actually do much this season. So we'll see what happens, and you guys already know that I'm going to be covering all of it, so again, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the Eagles coverage or content coming throughout this entire season. And also, again, while you're at it, make sure you drop a like, show some support if you did enjoy this video. It really does help me out a ton, and I'd greatly appreciate it. Again, let's see if we can get to 600 likes today, and also leave a comment down below regarding anything that I talked about in this video, because that also really helps me out a ton. And if you want to watch another video going over some Eagles news from earlier in the week, you can check this out right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys, so thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.